a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Georgiana Cavendish, Duchess of Devonshire. Georgiana Cavendish, Duchess of Devonshire was an English socialite, style icon, author, and activist. Of noble birth from the Spencer family, married into the Cavendish family, she was the first wife of William Cavendish, 5th Duke of Devonshire, and the mother of the 6th Duke of Devonshire. As the Duchess of Devonshire, she garnered much attention and fame in society during her lifetime. With a preeminent position in the peerage of England, the Duchess was famous for her beauty, charisma, and leading fashion and style, political campaigning, emotionally and psychologically conflicting marital arrangements and love affairs, and socializing and gambling. She was the great-great-great-grand-aunt of Diana, Princess of Wales. Their lives, centuries apart, have been compared in tragedy and contemporary time. Early life and family. The Duchess was born Miss Georgiana Spencer on the 7th of June 1757, as the first child of John Spencer and his wife, Georgiana, at the Spencer family home, Althorpe. After her daughter's birth, her mother wrote that, "I will own I feel so partial to my dear little G, that I think I never shall love another so well." Two younger siblings followed, Henrietta and George. Mr. John Spencer, great-grandson of John Churchill, 1st Duke of Marlborough, came from a wealthy English noble family. He built a Spencer family residence at St. James's, London, and raised his children there. The parents raised Georgiana and her siblings in a happy marriage which bears no record of there ever having been any extramarital affairs, a rarity in the era. Meanwhile, Georgiana grew to be close to her mother, who was said to favor Georgiana over her other children. When her father assumed the title of Viscount Spencer in 1761, she became the Honourable Georgiana Spencer. In 1765, her father became Earl Spencer, and she Lady Georgiana Spencer. Marriage and children. On her 17th birthday, the 7th of June 1774, Lady Georgiana Spencer was married to society's most eligible bachelor, William Cavendish, the 5th Duke of Devonshire. The wedding took place at Wimbledon Parish Church. It was a small ceremony attended only by her parents, her maternal grandmother, one of her prospective brothers-in-law, and soon-to-be sister-in-law. Her parents were emotionally reluctant to let their daughter go, but she was wed to one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the land. Her father, who had always shown affection to his children, wrote to her, "My dearest Georgiana, I did not know till lately how much I loved you. I miss you more every day and every hour." Mother and daughter continued to correspond throughout their lives, and many of their letters survive. From the beginning of the marriage, the Duke of Devonshire proved to be an emotionally reserved man who was quite unlike the Duchess's father, and who did not meet the emotional needs of the Duchess. The spouses also had little in common. He would seldom be at her side, and would spend nights at Brooks playing cards. The Duke continued with adulterous behavior throughout their married life, and discord followed pregnancies that ended in miscarriage or failure to produce a male child as heir. Before their marriage, the Duke had fathered an illegitimate daughter, Charlotte Williams, born from a dalliance with a former milliner, Charlotte Spencer. This was unknown to the Duchess until years after her marriage to the Duke. After the death of the child's mother, she was compelled to raise Charlotte herself. The Duchess of Devonshire was very pleased with Charlotte, although her own mother, now Countess Spencer, expressed disapproval. "I hope you have not talked of her to people." The Duchess replied, "She is the best-humoured little thing you ever saw." In 1782, while on a retreat from London with the Duke, the Duchess met Lady Elizabeth Foster in the city of Bath. She became close friends with Lady Elizabeth, who had become destitute after separating from her husband and 3 sons. Given the bond that developed between the two women, with the Duke's acquiescence, the Duchess agreed to having Lady Elizabeth live with them. When the Duke began a sexual relationship with Lady Elizabeth, a ménage à trois was established, and it was arranged that Lady Elizabeth live with them permanently. While it was common for male members of the upper class to have mistresses, it was not common or generally acceptable for a mistress to live so openly with a married couple. Furthermore, the Duchess had become emotionally dependent on Lady Elizabeth, whom she believed to be her best friend. Having no alternative, she became complacent over the matter. The arrangement among the three is more commonly referred to as a ménage à trois, but, while the relationship between the Duke and Lady Elizabeth was obviously sexual, there is no concrete evidence of anything beyond emotional dependence and a particular and open affection on the part of the Duchess towards Lady Elizabeth. In one of her letters, the Duchess of Devonshire wrote to Lady Elizabeth, "My dear Bess, do you hear the voice of my heart crying to you? Do you feel what it is for me to be separated from you?" Nevertheless, Lady Elizabeth Foster herself was said to actually envy her and wished for her position. Lady Elizabeth was reported to have insinuated her way into the marriage by taking advantage of the Duchess's friendship and love and having engineered her way into a sexual relationship with the Duke. Lady Elizabeth engaged in well-documented sexual relations with other men while she was in the love triangle with the Duke and Duchess. Among their contemporaries, the relationship between the Duchess of Devonshire and Lady Elizabeth Foster was the subject of speculation which has continued beyond their time. The love triangle itself was a notorious topic. It was an irregular arrangement in a high-profile marriage. Lady Elizabeth's affair with the Duke resulted in 2 illegitimate children, a daughter, Caroline Rosalie St. Jules, and a son, Augustus Clifford. Despite her unhappiness with her detached and philandering husband and volatile marriage, the Duchess, as per the custom of the day, was not socially permitted to take a lover without first having produced an heir. The first successful pregnancy resulted in the birth of Lady Georgiana Dorothy Cavendish on the 12th of July 1783. Called Little G, she would become the Countess of Carlisle and have issue of her own. The Duchess had developed a strong mothering sentiment since raising Charlotte, and she insisted on nursing her own children. On the 29th of August 1785, a second successful pregnancy resulted in another daughter, Lady Harriet Elizabeth Cavendish, called Harriot, who would become Countess Granville and also have children of her own. Finally, on the 21st of May 1790, the Duchess gave birth to a male heir to the dukedom, William George Spencer Cavendish, who took the title of Marquis of Hartington at birth, and was called Hart. He would never marry and became known as the Bachelor Duke. With the birth of the Marquis of Hartington, the Duchess was able to take a lover. While there is no evidence of when the Duchess began her affair with Charles Grey, she did become pregnant by him in 1791. Sent off to France, the Duchess believed she would die in childbirth. In this spirit, she wrote a letter to her recently born son stating, "As soon as you are old enough to understand this letter it will be given to you. It contains the only present I can make you, my blessing, written in my blood. Alas, I am gone before you could know me, but I loved you. I nursed you 9 months at my breast. I love you dearly." On the 20th of February 1792, Eliza Courtenay was born without complications to mother and child, and the Duchess was forced to give away the illegitimate daughter to Grey's family. The Duchess would later be given the opportunity to pay visits to her illegitimate daughter, providing her with presents and affection, and Eliza would grow up to marry Lieutenant Colonel Robert Ellis, and bear a daughter named Georgiana as well. While in exile in France in the early 1790s, the Duchess of Devonshire suffered from isolation and felt a separation from her children. To her eldest, she wrote, "Your letter dated the 1st of November was delightful to me, though it made me very melancholy, my dearest child. This year has been the most painful of my life. When I do return to you, never leave you, I hope again, it will be too great a happiness for me, dear Georgiana, and it will have been purchased by many days of regret indeed. Every hour I pass away from you, I regret you. If I amuse myself or see anything I admire, I long to share the happiness with you. If on the contrary I am out of spirits, I wish for your presence, which alone would do me good." In order to return to England and her children, she conceded to her husband's hypocritical demands and denounced her love for Charles Grey. Records of her exile in France were subsequently erased from the family records. However, the children of the Duke and Duchess had, at one point, been informed as to the reason of her absence during that period of their lives. Throughout her marriage, while the Duchess of Devonshire coped with the marital arrangements on the surface, she nevertheless suffered emotional and psychological distress. She sought further personal consolation from a dissipated existence, in passions, addictions, and affairs, pursuits and fame. With her renowned beauty and character, alongside her marriage to the affluent and powerful Duke of Devonshire, the Duchess enjoyed preeminence in society and was a high emblem of the era. Her keen sense made her the extravagant female leader in fashion and style in England. Using her influence as a leading socialite and fashion/style icon, she contributed to politics, science, and literature. As part of her illustrious social engagements, she would gather around her a large salon of literary and political figures. Among her major acquaintances were the most influential figures of her time, including the Prince of Wales, Marie Antoinette of France, and her favourite in court, the Duchess of Polignac, Charles Grey, and Lady Melbourne. Newspapers chronicled her every appearance and activity. She was called a phenomenon by Horace Walpole, who proclaimed, "She, a face is all without being a beauty." But her youthful figure, flowing good nature, sense and lively modesty, and modest familiarity make her a phenomenon. Madame D'Arblay, who had a preference for acquaintances of talent, found that her appeal was not generally for her beauty, but for far more, which included fine manner, politeness, and gentle quiet. Sir Nathaniel William Wraxall stated that her success as an individual lay in the amenity and graces of her deportment, in her irresistible manners, and the seduction of her society. Famously, when the Duchess was stepping out of her carriage one day, an Irish dustman exclaimed, "Love and bless you, my lady. Let me light my pipe in your eyes." Thereafter, whenever others would compliment her, the Duchess would retort, after the dustman's compliment, "All others are insipid." Politics. The Spencer family, from which she derived, was an ardent supporter of the Whig Party, as was she in the House of Cavendish. However, because the Duke's high position in the peerage disallowed him to participate so commonly in politics, the Duchess took it as a positive outlet for herself. In an age when the realization of women's rights and suffrage was still more than a century away, the Duchess became a political activist as the first woman to make active and influential frontline appearances on the political scene. Having begun her involvement in politics in 1778, she relished Enlightenment and Whig Party ideals and took it upon herself to campaign, particularly for a distant cousin, Charles James Fox, who was chief party leader alongside Richard Sheridan, for Whig policies which were anti-crown and advocated for liberty against tyranny. At the time of her involvement, King George III and his ministers had a direct influence over the House of Commons, principally through their power of patronage. The Prince of Wales, who always relished going against the grain with his father, joined the Whig Party at the time his friend, the Duchess, became involved. She was renowned for hosting dinners that became political meetings, and she took joy in cultivating the company of brilliant radicals. During the general election of 1784, the Duchess became a major subject of scrutiny. Fanciful rumors and political cartoons circulated during the campaign, ridiculing her for securing votes in exchange for sexual and monetary rewards. Thomas Rowlandson even satirized her, with a rumor of her trading kisses in his print, The Devonshire, or Most Approved Method of Securing Votes. Her mother pleaded her to step down, but the Duchess was not daunted and was adamant in her activism. On election day, the Duchess of Devonshire walked the streets of London, even gaining blisters on her feet, meeting face-to-face with commoners as equals. She was instrumental in the success of Fox and Lord Hood. But after the extensive campaigning and negative media against her, she retired, after the win, from the political arena for a while. In 1788, she returned to political activism, though behind the scenes. Even in the last years of her life, she pushed ahead in the field and attempted to help rebuild the Whig Party, which had become fragmented. Her efforts were to no avail, and the political party would eventually come to dissolve decades after her death. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?